Καλησπέρα και πρώτα απ' όλα ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank you for inviting me and Mr. Wood, because this shows that the Orthodox Church is quite open to listen to these discussions and debates. I'm not going to talk to you about posthumanism. And why is that? Because as far as I know, there is not a single association worldwide that claims to be posthumanistic. I will talk about transhumanism. I am the chairman of the French Association of Transhumanists. But even though I am French, I have been living in Greece for 15 years. My impression, because I keep track throughout these years what happens, so my impression is that the discussion around transhumanism here in Greece is dominated by Orthodox circles. Quite often it is presented simplistically as an expression of the Western capitalism leading to dehumanization and the abandonment of God, as it has already been said during the conference. But I think reality is more complex. Most transhumanists consider themselves humanists, and many transhumanist ideas are not contrary to the Christian faith. So I will seek to show you that a Christian transhumanism is feasible. So I will first try to answer the most common criticisms to transhumanism. And secondly, I will seek to make you understand that Christian faith and transhumanism are not necessarily two opposing concepts. So I will give a series of answers to the most common criticism that I have read and heard. Quite often, it is said that transhumanism is presented as a new religion. But that's not the case. Transhumanism asks once again, questions to which religions have always tried to answer, starting from our relationship with death. But transhumanism does that in a different way. More specifically, it does not provide a definite, a universal answer as religions do. And of course, it does not defy any dogma. It offers only assumptions. Also, transhumanism is criticized of representing exaggeration, hubris, of not respecting the limits that God has set for creation. I would say that transhumanism is part of the tradition of enlightenment. His relationship with techniques is connected to our relationship with knowledge. Absolute knowledge can be possibly accessed only through a spiritual approach. But in the relationship with technology, most transhumanists tend to follow a materialistic approach. They believe that the relationship with reality, which is accessible to us, is not defined by absolute limits, but by borders that can be expanded indefinitely. Another wrong criticism is that we seek immortality on earth. That is blatantly wrong. This confusion stems from the trend to use the term immortality to talk about the indefinite expansion of a healthy life. So, what transhumanists aim to are what Edgar Morin, the French philosopher and sociologist, called amortality, amortalité in French, already in the 1950s in his article Man and Death. So immortality is the condition that will arise from a victory over disease and aging. But such a condition would not eliminate diseases or accidental deaths. So the existential anguish will not disappear. Quite often, transhumanists are accused of being too Western, too individualistic, too liberal. So only that it addresses only the rich. Even though in the present time, yes, it seems that transhumanism is liberal, this shouldn't be considered inevitable in the future. There is transhumanism in China, in Africa, they are not liberal. At the end of the day, every community, every society can create its own transhumanism in accordance with its own values. And why not? Why wouldn't Christianity be able to come up with a Christian transhumanism? So transhumanism that will convey the word of Christ about love. Another criticism against transhumanism is that it is considered solutionist. It can resolve everything through technology. That's a lie as well. It is in the media that transhumanists have said that their aim is to improve the human condition through technology, and media focus on that without explaining the complexity of human thinking. Transhumanists do not reject law, culture, faith. They just believe that technology can be a valuable tool for the resolution of certain problems, including social issues. And the last category of criticisms I would like to answer to is the positions of transhumanism on bioethics. First of all, I would like to say that transhumanism does not stem from eugenics. Despite the historical connections to certain figures such as Huxley, modern transhumanism does not have the same pursuits as eugenics. It does not seek to create an ideal man. On the contrary, transhumanism is multifaceted, it is diverse, with many different opinions and views. And please note that according to the French Authority on Bioethics, it is stressed that transhumanism cannot be considered the same as eugenics. I would like to say that the morphological freedom of transhumanism is not risky, it's not dangerous. It is not incompatible with the Orthodox tradition. According to the Christian tradition, men were created in the image of God, and any alteration in this image could be a sin. Nevertheless, appearance and being are two different things. I believe that the Church advocates for love and acceptance. Therefore, morphological freedom of believers doesn't seem to be incompatible with orthodoxy. And finally, I will try to ask whether any intervention to human physiology seems incompatible with Christian values. The Church agrees to intervene in order to treat diseases, but there is a question: when it is the right time to intervene? And what is the definition of disease? If an embryo is considered to be an individual, then we could explore early pre-birth interventions. And if we want to treat all diseases related to aging, then aging is considered to be disease, and the best treatment is prevention, then we could ask ourselves, wouldn't it be possible to intervene even in the embryonic stage in order to prevent the horrible diseases connected to aging? Now, after having tried to answer the criticisms, I will now seek to say why, in my opinion, transhumanism is not necessarily opposed to Christian faith. Indeed, it seems that there is a supreme value shared by transhumanism and religions, and I'm talking about life, the wish to preserve it. Transhumanists want nothing more than to preserve life in all its forms. And to make this happen, we have to implement a series of practices that are also at the heart of Christian tradition. And I'm talking about compassion and care. The treating person, the person that opens their door to the destitute traveler and washes their feet, does nothing else than serving him and paying honor to him and improve their wellness, their well-being. This is why they take care of them. The Christian quest for well-being mainly focuses on the spiritual approach to God, without excluding bodily health. According to the Bible, there are prophets that lived almost 1,000 years, which coincides with the efforts of transhumanists to control aging. So this longevity doesn't seem to be blasphemous according to the Christian tradition. And according to St. John, some people will go straight from earth to heaven or to hell on Judgment Day. Therefore, they will not need to die in the meantime. Therefore, the important increase of life expectancy or even the elimination of mortality is not contrary to the destination of salvation or condemnation. The duration of life doesn't seem to determine the salvation of souls. Now, let's talk about artificial uteruses and genetic engineering. They do raise questions as to the preservance of human life and nature. Artificial uteruses could reduce pregnancy risks for mothers and children. Transhumanists believe that genetic engineering can be treated as traditional practices, such as education from a very early age, as musicians do, as athletes do. And despite the possible negative consequences, such practices have been accepted by the Church. So our suggestion is for the Church, instead of systematically opposing to them, do something else. Focus on ensuring the autonomy of the individual, free will, and the salvation of soul under the new circumstances. Now, when it comes to free will, transhumanists have rather radical views to defend it. The free disposal of ourself and body is one of the pillars of their plan. However, it doesn't seem to me that this is completely contradictory to the view of the Church. Free will is a substantial value in a Christian world that starts from the fact that people have acquired their knowledge of good and evil. The Church tries to guide them, but ultimately, isn't it up to each one of us to consciously undertake our responsibilities? And to conclude, transhumanism shouldn't be a priori condemned. There is the need for churches to understand its complexity and respond specifically to the challenges raised. There can be a Christian approach to transhumanism without abandoning God. It is just up to you to recognize it, to clarify it, or even to invent it. Radical technological development, especially artificial intelligence, will probably accelerate research to fight aging and to improve genetic engineering. So the issues of transhumanism become even more urgent. The support or containment of new practices is necessary, but always on the basis of love, dialogue, and the human values that connect Christianism and transhumanism. That's the only way to go forward. Thank you.